250,000 families vanished from the Oklahoma landscape in 1935, their names erased from every official record as the Dust Bowl swept the plains. In the dust-choked Anthon Town Hall, a cracked wooden ledger lay concealed beneath floorboards, its brittle pages holding the names of those lost souls. How did a modest clerk named Maud Hart manage to preserve these whispered testimonies when the world around her was crumbling? What drove her to risk everything for strangers whose faces she would never see? Maud Hart was born in 1892, the daughter of a railroad worker who had brought his family to Oklahoma in search of a new life. She grew up watching the endless horizon change under the harsh sun, and after a brief stint as a teacher, she took a job as the town clerk in the tiny hamlet of Anthon, where she learned to handle land deeds, tax forms, and the inevitable paperwork of a community on the brink. The Dust Bowl began in 1931, when a relentless windstorm lifted millions of tons of topsoil, turning once fertile wheat fields into a ghostly sea of black sand. By 1935, over 250,000 tenant farmers and their families were forced to abandon their homes, marching eastward to California or disappearing into the cracked earth of the plains. The government reported numbers, but the human stories were lost in bureaucratic forms. While the official county records were burned in a fire that consumed the courthouse in 1933, Maud kept a private ledger in the back of her desk, a thin notebook bound in faded black cloth. She began recording names, dates, and terse notes from families who came to her for help. "If they have no paper, I make one," she later recalled, because a promise written is a promise that cannot be erased. Each entry was a small rebellion, a refusal to let a life be reduced to a statistic. The ledger's pages are filled with crude cartoons of homesteads, handwritten eviction notices, and fragmented letters from farmers begging for seed money. One entry reads, "J. Miller, 3 children, lost 120 acres, now living in a car." Another, a torn photograph of a young woman clinging to a rusted bicycle, is tucked between the lines. Maud's own notes describe the emotional toll. The women cried, the men vowed to return, but the land was gone. She also cataloged the possessions left behind: a silver locket, a broken windmill, a weather-worn Bible. Fearing that the county auditor would eventually seize or destroy her work, Maud sewed the ledger into the floorboard of the old courthouse during a moonless night in February 1935. She whispered to herself that the stories would outlive the storms. For the next 30 years, the ledger remained untouched, its pages darkening with age. In 1965, a graduate student named Carl Whitaker was renovating the dusty attic of the repurposed courthouse for a new public library. While removing a sagging ceiling beam, his lantern illuminated a faint outline of a handwritten title on a hidden compartment. He pried open the floorboard and discovered Maud's ledger, its pages yellowed but still legible. The find became the centerpiece of his thesis on the social impact of the Dust Bowl, but Maud received no credit. Maud Hart lived another 7 years, working quietly as a clerk and tending her small garden. She never spoke of the ledger, never imagined that a single notebook could one day become a priceless historical artifact. She passed away in 1972, still unknown to the world she had secretly archived. In the early 2020, the Oklahoma Historical Society digitized Maud's ledger and made it available online. Researchers now cite her work to estimate the true death toll of the Dust Bowl era, noting that the 250,000 figure was only the tip of the iceberg. The ledger has sparked new documentaries, school curricula, and a small museum exhibition titled Ink of the Storm. Yet, thousands of unprocessed entries remain locked in climate-controlled storage, waiting for volunteers and funding to translate the handwritten notes into readable text. Maud's work stands as a testament that even the most fragile records can survive when a single person refuses to let history be silenced. Standing before the weathered pages, I felt the fragile weight of every erased name, and I realized that Maud's secret ledger was not just a record, but a lifeline to a generation that the wind tried to bury. Support the archive by hitting subscribe, and share your own Dust Bowl stories in the comments so we can dig them up. In the dust of canceled lives, one handwritten page can become a monument.